The Seventh Seal is a 1957 Swedish fantasy written and directed by Ingmar Bergman, based on his play called Wood Painting. The film follows Antonius Block, played by Max von Sydow, a 14th century knight from Sweden who goes off to fight in the Crusades and returns home to a country ravaged by the plague. The film's epigram, Revelations 8 and verse 1, describes a half hour of silence after the opening of the seventh seal. It is within this half hour that Block and Death play a game of chess that Block uses to buy time to search for the meaning of life and the existence of God. The themes of the film deal with universal questions we have pertaining to God, life after death, and destiny. Life after death. The question of whether there is life after death torments Block, and he seeks this answer from the church, a possessed woman condemned to burn at the stake, and from death himself. No one, however, can answer his question. Amidst the threat of danger and death, there's Joseph, Mary, and their son Michael, who represents life after death. Michael's connection with Jesus is supported when Joseph sees a vision of Virgin Mary. Later in the film, Michael and his parents become the target of death as Block leads them through the forest. The film ends on a hopeful note as death spares Michael and his parents, taking everyone else. Does God exist? Block seeks the existence of the devil in the hopes that proving this will also prove the inverse, the existence of God. Block poses this question to a woman who is to burn at the stake for being possessed by the devil. Block, however, is not convinced that she is possessed, and he leaves disappointed. Matthew 11, verse 25. At that time, Jesus said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and learned and revealed them to little children. This scripture is expressed in this film by the fact that of all those in the film, the only person who death passes over can see not only death and the dead, but also the Virgin Mary, Joseph. His childlike qualities exemplify the above verse. This may also explain why Joseph's family is spared death by not making it to Block's castle at the end of the film. The inevitability of death. A traveling performer named Scat avoids death at the hands of a blacksmith whose wife he steals and seduces. Scat pretends to stab himself in the heart with a fake knife and tricks the blacksmith. Scat is happy with himself afterwards and climbs a tree, only to look down and find death at the bottom sawing away. Scat begs death, listing all of his obligations. Death continues sawing until the tree falls, killing Scat. It is no coincidence that Scat plays a clown in the theater, a clown being someone who laughs or takes things, in this case life and death, lightly by running off with another man's wife. He believes that climbing a tree will protect him from any kind of danger, but he learns that death is inescapable. Climbing a tree is symbolic, representing man's belief that he can transcend the dangers of life today, such as wearing seat belts, eating healthy, exercising, etc. But no matter what we do to distance ourselves from the dangers of living, death is certain, and though it can be delayed, it cannot be denied. This episode is also connected with Block himself, who survives war and death in the Crusades in Jerusalem, only to return to the plague and death in his own country. False prophets. The Bible speaks of false prophets deceiving the whole world. Matthew 7 and verse 15. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. In this film, the false prophet is Ravaged, the divinity student who persuades Block and Johns to fight in the Crusades, promising them that doing so will lead them to salvation. It doesn't. Ravaged is characterized as a thief and rapist in the film, who is warned by Johns, playing God's vengeance, who ultimately takes his knife to Ravaged's face, marking him as a hypocrite. In another example of false prophets, priests holding aloft the statue of Jesus on the cross lead a procession of plague-infected villagers flogging one another with whips from the belief that the plague is punishment for man's sins. The head priest then goes on to use fear to get more villagers to join his congregation. A friend and I had a discussion about this the other day. There are more churches in economically distressed areas than there are in affluent areas. In North St. Louis, there are some city blocks with 5 or more churches. Taking a drive through Clayton or any of the many economically stable areas west of Skinker, you'd be hard-pressed to find 2 churches within miles of each other. I once took a half-mile stroll in Clayton, starting from Forsyth at Brentwood Boulevard to Forsyth and Hanley, counting the banks along this stretch, which came out to be around 20. 20 banks or other financial institutions in a 5-block stretch. By contrast, I took a quarter-mile stroll in North St. Louis from Union and Natural Bridge to Union and Dr. King Boulevard and counted at least 30 churches. Even though the obvious problem up north is blight, and most of it around the churches themselves, you're more likely to see a church being built than a business. These are just some of the perspectives that I wanted to share with you about what I thought of Ingmar Bergman's 1954 film, The Seventh Seal. And I would appreciate it if you would like the video or leave a comment. Also, you'll find in the description a link that will take you to my blog where I have other film-related material such as the video that I just presented to you. Again, thanks, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.